When Splatoon was first revealed in 2014, people were not sure exactly what to make of it. However, even on the Wii U, Splatoon turned out to be quite the success. Even more so, after its sequel on the Nintendo Switch. Both of these games have been among Nintendo's biggest games on their respective platforms. And a great innovation when it comes to shooter games, third person, or otherwise. Now, we've finally had a third entry with Splatoon 3, and the series is bigger than it's ever been. But is it better? Everything you loved about Splatoon 2 is present here, and then some. The game looks a bit better, it plays a bit better, and it has more content than the previous releases did at launch. Splatoon 3 brings back pretty much everything from Splatoon 2, including all the competitive multiplayer modes, and the co-op mode, Salmon Run. However, this game is not trying to reinvent the wheel. To the average gamer, this game comes off as identical to Splatoon 2. And, well, to be honest, that's not an entirely unfair assessment. From Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2, the fact that people did not have to use their Wii U to play Splatoon matches anymore is a great selling point for Splatoon 2. That said, the addition of a cooperative mode at least gave a whole new way to play the game. So it wasn't just a slightly enhanced sequel. Splatoon 3 bears a lot of similarities to both of its predecessors, and returning players are not likely to be blown away by the changes. However, the changes, I think, are enough to justify this existing as something separate from Splatoon 2. Splatoon 3 definitely feels better to navigate the hub world than Splatoon 2, and getting into multiplayer matches feels a lot smoother. This is a low standard, sure, but if your only online games are Nintendo, it will feel downright revolutionary. You can queue up for a match and continue playing in the lobby until enough players are found, or you can join a game with friends. No more staring at a menu until the match is ready to go. While the gameplay itself is nothing groundbreaking for Splatoon fans, there are some noticeable changes. One of these changes is the Squid Surge, which allows you to quickly move up a wall. This is a surprisingly significant change, as even the smallest of changes to movement can drastically change how a battle goes. Perhaps the best change, at least for some, is the fact that the announcements upon starting up the game are now skippable. While we like the groups doing the announcements, when trying to get into a match quickly as possible, it's kind of a pain. Luckily, even if you do skip it, you still see the update at the top of the screen, scrolling by like a news ticker. If you grow bored of using the same weapons on the same maps in Splatoon 3, the new content might appeal here. The new weapons are a lot of fun, especially the Splatana. Be sure to experiment with weapons both new and old, as you might find something new that strikes your fancy. When all is said and done, Splatoon single-player content is never the highlight of the game, except maybe Octo Expansion for Splatoon 2. It's fun, unique, and there's plenty of it. But honestly, it's basically a big tutorial section to prime you to play multiplayer. Don't get us wrong, we would still recommend it even if you know how to play the game. But it won't be the end of the world if you decide to skip it. In this campaign, the big gimmick is the presence of mammals. Well, mammal octopi, and trying to figure out what is causing this outbreak of fur. It starts out a bit linearly, but once you get to the hub area, it begins to open up immensely, both in terms of the options and interesting levels. We'd love it if Splatoon 3's single-player content was deeper, but for now, it is good enough. It's also not too long in the tooth. It only took us about 6 hours to get through, though there are secrets if you are a completionist who wants to delve deeper, and at the end of the campaign, you'll be treated to content that is much more interesting than what preceded it. For most people, the multiplayer is going to be the reason why you get this game. If you aren't into multiplayer games, competitive ones, or otherwise, this game may not have much to win you over. For multiplayer fans, however, Splatoon 3 is a fast paced, intense, and creative experience. And there are enough fun features for the dedicated Splatoon fan or new player to come check it out. It's a great experience for players, both new and old. One issue we have with Splatoon 3, and this is an issue we have with all games in the series, is rotation. For playing with other random players, unless you are a big Turf War fan, you are bound to be a little disappointed when your favourite mode does not come up. We personally love Splat Zones, the best of the competitive Splatoon modes, so anytime we can't play is a disappointment. It's at least a little curbed if tower control is in rotation instead. Ultimately, however, if nothing is to your liking, you have to wait a couple hours and hope that the next rotation works out better for you. Rotation also applies to the maps, which means that gameplay can become somewhat samey if you play many rounds in a row. The best way to take advantage of the content in Splatoon 3, ultimately, is to get a group together to play on whatever levels or modes you feel like at the time. If you feel that the multiplayer is just not challenging enough, well, that is where Anarchy Battles comes in. It's basically the same as regular mode, except you will have to deal with much stronger competition than normal. What might be the greatest challenge for many players, however, is online play. This is honestly not even a criticism of Splatoon 3, but Nintendo Switch Online in general. Not only is the online play no longer free, meaning that you have to pay if you want to do more than single player or local multiplayer, but the online connection quality struggles a lot. We've personally had it better than a lot of the other players, but be prepared to suffer from disconnects and lags galore. While the standard multiplayer content in Splatoon 3 is quite similar to that of Splatoon 2, the game does actually have a new mode. Table Turf Battle. This mode is a 1v1 competitive game, and unlike the standard multiplayer modes, it is not a shooter at all, playing more like a competitive puzzle game instead. It feels like they tried to make an abstract version of Turf War, using cards with different shapes on them to try and take turf. We were honestly skeptical when we first saw it, but to be honest, it's kind of fun. We wouldn't pay to play this if it was released as its own game personally, but of what was played, there was certainly fun to be had. By far the biggest complaint about Splatoon 2 was how they handled Salmon Run. It was one thing for the game to rotate modes and maps, but for Salmon Run in Splatoon 2, the game's only player vs enemy mode was only available every so often. Salmon Run, unlike the other modes, is 100% cooperative, meant for 4 players to go 3 rounds gathering salamide eggs from boss salamides while they try to survive. When we noticed that Salmon Run was no longer treated as part of the mode rotation, let me tell you, we were elated. Honestly, we could spend hours playing this mode. It just gets so intense so quickly. Of course, while being able to play it all the time is enough to get us smiling, we still need to account for how Salmon Run shakes things up. While the changes aren't massive, I'd say they do a lot to change how you play this mode. Perhaps the biggest of these changes is the addition of the egg throw ability, which allows you to, as the name implies, throw eggs. This uses Ink so you can't just throw a bunch of eggs in a row, but it means that you have a lot more movement options at your disposal. In addition to this new mechanic, there is new content exclusive to Salmon Run as well. 2 new stages, plus new boss salamids, including the occasional fight with King Salamid, help shake this mode up. It would just be nice if the rewards for beating King Salamid were more worthwhile. Perhaps the most touted part of Salmon Run in Splatoon 3, however, is the Big Run mode, where other stages are invaded by salamids. At launch, this mode was not available, but we're looking forward to seeing how it's executed. Freshness has always been a big part of the Splatoon concept, at its very core, and the game encourages you to embrace that by allowing you to customize the kind of clothes your Inkling or Octoling can wear. Additionally, you can change your skin color, hairstyle, and gender whenever you want, so that you are never beholden to a single character design. Each clothing item you choose will affect your stats, so it is not pure aesthetics going into it. However, thanks to one NPC, Merch, you can actually make efforts to put the skills you want on the equipment you want. No more having to sacrifice one or the other. A new layer of customization was added in the form of customizing your locker and your nameplate. You get your own personalized locker, which you can decorate with items you buy with the in-game currency. And the nameplates are worn during gameplay, allowing players to get a better look into the kind of person they are playing with or against. Honestly, while we were waiting to see more of Splatoon 3, we couldn't help but speculate about what the next idol group might be. Deep Cut, consisting of the Inkling Fry, Octoling Shiver, and Manta Ray Big Man, wasn't what we expected. But we were happy to see these three. It'll be fun to see how they grow over time. I mean, how can you not love Big Man? One of the big things that Splatoon does to keep people coming back One of the big things that Splatoon does to keep people coming back is its Splatfests. Basically, the idols present opposing sides, such as Mayo versus Ketchup in Splatoon 2, and you have to pick which team you want to fight for. The first one was Rock, Paper, Scissors, with each of the three idols picking one of these. Normally, it'd be a one-on-one affair, but now it's a one-on-one-on-one. And at some point, all three teams will actually be thrown into one match. The match is actually still 8 players maximum, but the winning team will be in the center, while 2 members of each opposing team will be flanking them. It's an interesting concept in theory, but unfortunately the balance is just too out of whack to be fun in execution. Nintendo has announced that they plan to rebalance it, so here's hoping things go better in future Splatfests. One of the coolest things about Splatoon music is the lore behind the fictional bands which makes these songs in the universe of Splatoon. And for those who are actually into the lore of these bands, one member, Harmony, actually shows up, representing the first time a band member has appeared in-game. Ever since the original Splatoon, the series has always had a debut song by the game's respective idols. Even Octo Expansion got one. The new song, Anarchy Rainbow, is a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed the instrumentals. Splatoon 3 is a great game, but it is not for everyone. If you don't need your Splatoon itch scratched, then you likely will want to skip this entry, at least until there's a sale. However, if you are a fan of the previous single-player modes, want to play Salmon Run 24/7, or even just want a fun multiplayer game to play with your friends, we cannot recommend Splatoon 3 more highly. For us, it was well worth the cost of admission.